Yahweh Shemel Shai. Yahweh Shemel Shai. Barakatah Yahweh Shai. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh Shai.
With this crown, I declare you our sovereign. All hail the king! I, Esdras, saw upon the Mount Zion a great people, whom I could not number, and they all praised the Lord Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, with songs. And in the midst of them, there was a young man of a high stature, taller than all the rest, and upon every one of their heads he set crowns, and was more exalted, which I marveled at greatly. Receive this crown as a blessing from the Most High. May your reign be just and prosperous. So I asked the angel, and said, Sir, what are these? He answered and said unto me, These be they that have put off the mortal clothing, and put on the immortal, and have confessed the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. With this crown, I bestow upon you the legacy of our people. Rule wisely. Now are they crowned, and receive palms. Then said I unto the angel, What young person is it that crowneth them, and giveth them palms in their hands? So he answered and said unto me, It is the Son of Yahweh, whom they have confessed in the world. Then began I greatly to commend them that stood so stiffly for the name of the Lord. With this crown, I charge you to lead our people with wisdom and strength. All hail the new king. Hail! Then the angel said unto me, Go thy way, and tell my people what manner of things, and how great wonders of the Lord thy God thou hast seen. I now crown you king. All hail the new king. Long live the king.
Barakatah Yahweh Shai. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh Shai. Yahweh Shemel Shai. Yahweh Shemel Shai. Barakatah Yahweh Shai. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh Shai.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Rakakwadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers, and peace and blessings and salutation to the hopeful elect out there pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds. In the name of Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Rakakwadash, pushing to get up out of there. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the believers, the listeners whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashem Shai. All right, and what I want to get into with this lesson, is dealing with, the seed that turned into a kingdom, and this lesson was inspired by, all right, let's go here to the book of Mark, okay, as Yahweh Shai, is going, through different parables, okay, and he speaks into he goes into a similitude, of the kingdom of heaven, and he makes the point when you read the book of Mark chapter 4 verse 30, and he said, whereunto shall we liken the kingdom of the Most High, or with what comparison shall we compare it? Okay, so whereunto shall we liken the kingdom? Okay, or what can we compare? So this is a similitude. Okay, it says it is like a grain of mustard seed, which when it is sown in the earth is less than all the seeds that be in the earth. Okay, so let's go to this word. Let's go to mustard seed. Okay, because he compared the kingdom to like a mustard seed. Okay, and when you go into what a mustard seed is, we understand more of what he's saying. All right. And it's heavy, because we're a part of it, man. We're part of that mustard seed, that's growing into, all right, a great kingdom. Now it says mustard says the name of a plant which in oriental countries grows from a very small seed and attains to the height of a tree, 10 feet or 3 meters and more. Hence, a very small quantity of a thing is likened to a mustard seed, and also a thing which grows to a remarkable size. Also, a thing which grows into remarkable size. Okay, and this is the kingdom. As it started out, small. All right, you go into, High Priest Ella Albert Bivens. Okay, as he, the spirit was on him, which we know that John the Baptist coming back. But it began with one man, teaching Yahushua, planting the seed of Yahushua in the earth. Okay, and you see what it's grown to until the day. Okay, so you take the example of this mustard seed is similar to something that starts off, very small in quantity. One man, all right, Elder Albert Bivens teaching Yahushua, and now you have camps throughout the earth. All right, and soon you're going to have the return of Yahushua to conquer the heathen and establish, all right, an actual infrastructure, the actual government, okay, that's going to rule the earth. It's going to grow into something remarkable. You see? So when you finish this, okay, that Mark 4:32 said, but when it is sown, it groweth up and becoming greater than all herbs. Okay, it becomes greater than all herbs. You see? So this kingdom is going to become greater than all kingdoms, man. You see, it's going to be an eternal kingdom. It's going to be righteous. Okay, it's going to be the wisest kingdom. Okay, you're going to have wise government. It's going to be the most powerful kingdom ever. Okay, it's going to be the most peaceful kingdom ever. You see, it's going to be a kingdom of abundance. You see, it says it shooteth out great branches so that the fowls of the air may lodge under the shadow of it, man. Okay, so this kingdom, is going to be provision for the earth, man. This kingdom is going to provide provision for the earth. Okay, and our kingdom ain't going to be, starvation. Now that 1,000-year period is going to be a rigorous captivity. Okay, but that's the beginning of the kingdom, because the heathen have to be punished and chastened. Esau has to be paid back double, okay, and destroyed, and the rest of the heathen had to be chastened and punished and corrected, okay, within that 1,000 years, man. Okay, you're not gonna have, all right, extreme poverty, okay, unbalanced wealth distribution. Now we're gonna have, surplus. We're gonna be on such a level it's not gonna be comparable, but it's gonna be so much abundance, man, that everyone, all right, is gonna be able to be good. Okay, so this kingdom is going to provide, a shade, because there's going to be no more wars. Okay, why? Because of righteous rulership. See, true strength ain't in starting wars. True strength is being able to prevent wars. Okay, that's why our kingdom is going to be on another level. Okay, and just to show you that this speaking of a kingdom, when you go to the book of Daniel, chapter 4. All right, this is the book of Daniel, chapter 4, in verse 10. It says, now this is Nebuchadnezzar, he's expressing his dream, all right, to Daniel. Okay, as Daniel 4:10 said, it said, thus was there visions of my head in my bed. I saw and beheld a tree in the midst of the earth, and the height thereof was great. The tree grew and was strong, and the height thereof reached unto heaven, and the sight thereof to the end of all the earth. The leaves thereof were fair, and the fruit thereof much, and in it was meat for all. The beasts of the field, all right, had shadow under it, and the fowls of heaven dwelt in the bowls thereof, and all right, flesh was fed of it. Okay. Now, when you go down to the interpretation, all right, of the dream, verse 20, Daniel 4:20 said, the tree that thou sawest which grew and was strong, whose height reached unto the heaven, okay, and the sight thereof to all the earth, whose leaves were fair, and the fruit thereof much, and it was meat for all under the heaven, which the kings, all right, which the beasts of the field dwelt, and upon whose branches the fowls of the heaven had their habitation. It says, it is thou, O king, thou art grown and become very strong, for thy greatness, all right, is grown and reached unto heaven, and thy dominion to the end of the earth. So this tree represents Nebuchadnezzar and his dominion, his kingdom. Okay, like the kingdom of heaven, that mustard seed, that small seed, okay, which ultimately is going to represent Yahweh Shai, okay, and what his kingdom, okay, and his dominion. You see, Yahweh Shai was that small seed that was planted, okay, and is growing into a kingdom, and the kingdom begins with what? The people, okay. That's why Yahweh Shai, when you go here, let's get this. In the book of Luke, what did Yahweh Shai tell his men? Okay. This is the book of Luke, chapter 17 and 21. It said, neither shall they say, lo here or lo there, for behold, the kingdom of the Most High is within you. You see? So the seed was planted in us, which is the seed of Yahweh Shai, his word. Okay, and that seed is being watered, all right, through the Holy Spirit, through the teaching, as we toil and labor in his word, that seed is being watered and is growing into a kingdom, because we're becoming, all right, rulers, man. We're becoming judges. We're becoming wise judges, man. We're becoming joint heirs with Yahweh Shai. You see, remember, we're becoming something, man. Okay, so we're becoming fit for rulership, Lord, will we endure. Okay, the Lord is constantly refining us through affliction, through sacrifice, through discipline, patience. He's refining us into joint heirs for what? Rulership, man. To be joint heirs with Yahweh Shai. So the kingdom is within. Okay, it starts within us. Okay, and what we're doing, we're constantly spreading out more seed. Okay, for the kingdom. Matter of fact, in this same chapter, when you go to Mark, the parable of the sower, okay? But when you go into the breakdown, this is Mark 4:13, and he said unto them, know ye not this parable, and how then, when you know all parables? It said, the sower, all right, the sower soweth the word, okay? So we sowed the word, this seed, it's the word, all right? And this word is growing into a kingdom. And who is the word? Yahweh Shai, okay? That's that great tree, okay, that's growing in the earth. And see, it's undeniable now. See, the elite see it. Okay, and this will has them on panic mode. Okay, so the soul will sow it, all right, the word, and the word is who? Yahweh Shai. Okay, that seed, all right, that's going to grow into what? The kingdom, man. You see? So you go from there. Let's get this, because even you look at the house of David, it started out small. Well, let's go to Genesis. Go to Genesis first. Okay. The Genesis 17, and this is, okay. This is before the birth of Isaac, when Abraham, when he didn't even have, a seed. Okay. It says, Genesis 17:4 says, as for me, behold, my covenant is with thee. This is him, father talking to Abraham. He's going to change the name from Abram to Abraham. And thou shalt be a father of many nations. Neither shall thy name anymore be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham, for a father of many nations have I made thee. And those many nations are Israelites, all right, the tribes, okay? Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, then you have the tribes, okay? Abraham was a progenitor of, the tribe. You see? It says, and I will make thee exceeding fruitful, okay? Because when you deal with seed, well, you want your seed to be what? Fruitful. Okay, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. Okay, so this is the Lord, is likening to the Lord. Okay, planting Abraham. You see, and out of Abraham will come what? Kings. You see, so this promise, all right, to Abraham will mean that he will begin to produce kings. It will become a day when he will produce kings, man. Okay, now great kings have come from the loins of Abraham, okay, already, all right, but the fulfillment is going to be in the kingdom, man, all right, when we're all going to be what? Kings and priests to our power, okay, and I will establish my covenant between me and thee and thy seed, okay, after thee in their generations for an everlasting covenant to be a power, all right, unto thee and to thy seed after thee, okay, which is was Isaac, okay, from Isaac was Jacob, and from Jacob the 12 tribes, okay, which will grow into what? A mighty nation, okay, then from Abraham, Isaac to Jacob, then the 12 tribes, and then that's when you get the kingdom is going to grow to what? A remarkable size, like the mustard seed, okay. Let's go here. When you go to Isaiah, or even before you go to Isaiah, let's get this, because even the house of David, it started as something small, and grew, into a dynasty. When you go to First Samuel, let's get this in First Samuel, just to give an example, give an account. This is First Samuel chapter 4. All right, in verse 1, it said, David therefore departed thence and escaped to the cave Adullam, and when his brethren and all his father's house heard it, they went down thither to him. Okay, so this is when King David was on the run, all right, from King Saul. Okay, and it says, and everyone that was in distress, and everyone that was in debt, and everyone that was discontented, all right, gathered themselves unto him, and he became a captain over them, and there were with him about 400 men. So King David, when he, fled, from the house of Saul, okay, or his kinsmen, okay, of his father's house, men of Judah, certain men, that said those that was in distress, those that was in debt, those that were discontented, pretty much the outcasts. Okay, well, they gathered unto King David and made him captain over them. Okay, and he and this 400 men, grew into a powerful dynasty in the earth, man, a powerful house in the earth. Something small, okay, looked insignificant, grew into a powerful dynasty, man. Okay, that will conquer nations. 400 men. You see, through the faith, King David's faith, his favor that he had with the Lord. Okay, they grew into a dynasty, man. Something small grew to what? Remarkable size. Okay, because you take those same, all right, matter of fact, let's just get it. Because you take those 400 men, and by the time you get to 2 Samuel 5, just go into the history. All right, so by the time you get to 2 Samuel, the 5th chapter, it's 2 Samuel 5 and 1. It said, then came all the tribes of Israel to David unto Hebron, and spake, saying, behold, we are thy bone and thy flesh. Which going to their kinsmen. Okay, they all come from that same lineage, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So all the tribes, okay, which are like individual nations, all right, they united, under the order of King David. And this is the throne Yahweh Shai is coming to establish. And that's why you have a uniting of the tribes, just as they gathered to King David. Well, now the gathering is to Yahweh Shai, okay, who's going to establish the throne of David, okay, forever in the earth, man. It says also in time past when Saul was king over us, thou was he that led us out and brought us in Israel. And the Lord said to thee, thou shalt feed my people, all right, Israel, and thou shalt be a captain over Israel. Remember, okay, the kingdom, one of the responsibilities of a kingdom is to feed its subjects, to protect its subjects, to create a covering, okay, for his subjects, man, for his people. Okay. You see? So King David, he was a capable, okay, king, all right, that will provide prosperity for his people, okay? But it will provide a hedge for his people, and Yahweh Shai is going to do it on a whole nother level, man. Okay? So verse 3 says, so all the elders of Israel came to the king of Hebron, and King David made a league with them in Hebron before the Lord, and they anointed, all right, David king over Israel. Okay, so you had David, those 400 men that he started with. Well, guess what? They grew into, okay, all the tribes united, okay, into a mighty kingdom. And David was a protector and a provider, okay, for his people. Okay. And it said David was 33 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years in Hebron. He reigned over Judah 7 years and 6 months. And in Jerusalem, he reigned 33 years over all right, Israel and Judah. Okay. So that he grew into what? A great and mighty kingdom. Okay. And when you go down, let's go here. Let me see. Let's go to First Chronicles 18. Let's go here. I believe it's it. Yep. So this is First Chronicles 18:1 said, now after it came to pass that David smote the Philistines and subdued them, and took Gath and her towns out of the hand of the Philistines, and he smote Moab, and the Moabites became David's servants and brought gifts. All right, and David smote Hadarezer, king of Zobah, unto Hamath, and he said as he went to establish a dominion by the river Euphrates, and David took from him 1,000 chariots and 7,000 horsemen and 20,000 footmen. David also hewed all the chariot horses, but reserved, all right, of them 100 horses. And when the Syrians of Damascus came to help Hadarezer, king of Zobah, David slew the Syrians 220,000 men. Then David put garrisons in Syria, Damascus, and Syria became David's servants and brought gifts. Thus the Lord preserved David whithersoever he went. And David took the shields of gold that were on the servants of Hadarezer and brought them to Jerusalem. So he's providing a spoil for the nation. Gifts and tribute is coming. All right. So this like a tree. Well, that's what providing, shade, food, meat, shadow, okay, for his people. It said, likewise from Timber and from Con, cities of Hadarezer, brought David very much brass, wherewith Solomon made the brass and sea and the pillars Okay, and the vessels of brass. King Solomon inherited a lot of resources. The Lord increased them, and he flipped the resources that King David had. Okay, through the blessing of the Lord. Okay, but David brought in a lot of substance, man. You see, yeah, he was like that small mustard seed that grew into, remarkable size. Okay, remember, this all started from 400 men. It said, now when Tau, king of Hamath, heard how David had smitten, so, you can read the rest of that chapter. All right. Pretty much it was King David built to ass, all right, with all these heathens, man. Okay. But let's go from there. Okay. Because when you go into when you go into 2 Samuel, all right, the 7th chapter, because during the time of King David and King Solomon, there was a prelude, okay, of what was to come. So when Yahushua returns, it's going to be a continuation of the era of Solomon on another level with another glory, with immortality. Okay. This is 2 Samuel 7-8. It said, now therefore, so shalt thou say unto my servant David. This is Nathan, all right, which Nathan the prophet, and he comes with a message to King David. It said, now therefore, so shalt thou say unto my servant, thus said the Lord, Yahweh Shema Shah of hosts, I took thee from the sheepcote, from following the sheep, to be ruler over my people, over Israel. Okay, and he started with a shepherd. They went from a shepherd to a great, conquering king. You see? It says, and I was with thee whithersoever thou wentest, and have cut off all thy enemies out of thy sight, and have made thee a great name, like unto the name of the great men that are in the earth. So the Lord had exalted, King David, and King David had a great name. Okay? Started off as a shepherd boy. Okay? And now he was feared. Okay? Amongst the nations of the earth. It said, moreover, I will appoint a place for my people Israel, and will plant them, that they may dwell in the place of their own, and move no more. Neither shall the children of wickedness afflict them any more as before time. And that's coming into the time that we're in now. The children of wickedness is Esau, man. Okay, because his ability to afflict us, is going to be script. Yahushua is coming to script. All right, Esau of all power. Okay, and put his ass in captivity, man. And the countdown gonna begin for him to be done away with, man. We're getting our land back. Okay, we're getting that power, we're getting that sovereignty, man. Okay, and all this is the result of the teaching of this word, man. And this time going to through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shema Shah, the teaching of his word, starting with Elder Abba Bivens. He planted the seed of Yahweh Shah. Okay, and it's growing into that mighty tree. Okay, and the branches are beginning to what? You see, spread out, man. It says, and since the time that I commanded judges to be over my people Israel, have caused thee to rest from all thy enemies, also the Lord telleth thee that he will make thee an house. And then it says, and when thy days be fulfilled, and thou shalt sleep with thy fathers, I will set up thy seed after thee, which shall proceed out of thy bowels, and I will establish his kingdom. Okay, now this is speaking of Yahushua. Okay, Solomon, okay, he forwarded the throne to David, but it wasn't the fulfillment, okay, of this prophecy. Okay, King Solomon was established. There was a prelude for what Yahushua was going to do. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. Okay, so Yahushua, when he was born, when that seed, okay, through the lineage of King David, okay, that seed that will grow into Yahushua, well, this is the seed in which the Lord is going to establish, okay, the kingdom forever, okay, under the banner of Yahweh Shai, okay, and in that kingdom, every Israelite man can go into it. Let's go here, Isaiah 60. All right, so we go here to the book of Isaiah, chapter 60. Okay. Yep. Isaiah 60 and 21, it says, thy people also shall be all righteous, you know, because every Israelite that's produced in the kingdom is going to be righteous, you know, no more bad fruit, you know, no more 2/3, you know, for the kingdom, 2/3 going to be brought back through, okay, a remnant, you know, there's going to be a remnant that's going to be perfected. This go around is going to be changed, you know, deliverance, okay, of Yahweh Shai, okay, and that's going to be the elect are going to be the progenitor of the rest of the nation, you know, and those first fruits, okay, beginning with those 12,000 men, you know, from each tribe, okay, and you're going to have, you know, men as a part of the, you know, the rest of the 1/3, okay, in which, you know, that's going to be the beginning of righteous seed coming out of Israel forever. Everything going to be righteous, okay, we're going to be that perfect tree that only produces perfect fruit as a people, okay. It said, thy people also shall be all righteous. They shall inherit the land forever, the branch of my planting, the work of my hands, that I may be glorified. You see that? So the Lord is getting ready to plant the nation of Israel. Okay, the elect. You know, the Lord's going to plant them in the earth. He's going to plant them in rulership. Okay, and it's going to be for his glory. You know, we're going to be an extension of his righteousness, his wisdom, his power in the earth, man. Okay, as rulers. All right, verse 22, it says, a little one shall become 1,000, and a small one, a strong nation. I, the Lord, Yahweh Bashim Shai, will hasten it in his time. Okay, so a little one becoming 1,000, that mustard seed, something small growing into a remarkable size. Okay, a small one, a nation. Okay, and the Lord's going to hasten it in his time. You see, the Lord's going to hasten these things in his time, you know. So we're witnessing the seed, okay, which we know, ultimately, it's Yahweh Shai, his word, you know, is going to grow into a remarkable kingdom in the earth. You see, we're going to grow into a remarkable kingdom, and the Lord going to hasten, all right, the nation building process in the kingdom, okay. And we can go here to Daniel real quick, Daniel 2. Okay, another dream of Nebuchadnezzar. All right, and this is Yahweh Shai coming to destroy, okay, the heathen kingdoms of the earth. Okay, Daniel 2:34 says, thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon the feet. And right now we're in the feet of the statue that Nebuchadnezzar had to dream about. Okay, NATO, America, and the EU represent the feet of the statue, and we're in that time. Okay, it says, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and of clay, and break them to pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and gold broken to pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer and threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, the nukes, all right, and the chariots. Then no place was found for them, and the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. And that stone that smote the image is Yahweh Shai. Okay, he's going to destroy, okay, the empire of Esau. All right, and these heathen vassals under Esau, he's going to completely destroy. Okay, he's going to destroy the governments of the earth. You see, and it's going to be the kingdom of heaven. All right, it's going to be the kingdom of Israel. All right, the kingdom of Yahushua is going to fill the whole earth. You see, so that's the point. I leave it there. Just wanted to get into that. So, Lord will, you brothers, all right, and you sisters, edified once again. Want to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushua, Bahashim, Rakakadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers. And peace and blessings, salutations to the whole place. Shalom.